You're tuned in to the 49th Hour Podcast.
We are back with the 49th Hour Podcast. I am your host, Zach, and joining me are my new co-hosts, Jordan and Tommy. How are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good.
Doing good, thanks.
I cannot tell you guys how excited I am to get this podcast back up and running again. It's crazy. It's just nice to be able to talk about the Niners with other fans that are also Niner fans.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely is. A lot of stress relief.
Very excited about this, fellas.
So, with the season currently right now, we are 4-5 with the Saints coming up next week. And we just saw the Saints put it on the Buccaneers last night.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Like, the Saints were not that, I don't want to say good, but they weren't also that great the past few weeks.
Right.
And people expected the Buccaneers to destroy the Saints, but it got flip-flopped.
Yeah, it was a totally boring game to watch. I mean, I think I was just glancing at it towards the end of the night. Because I think the Saints just lost to the Raiders like a couple weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I wasn't really expecting too much of this game, but oh, man. It was like, 38-3, I think was the end. So I don't even know what to think of the Saints.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Bucs didn't even get 200 yards of total offense, and they got a good chunk of that. They ended up with 194 total, and they got a good chunk of that in garbage time towards the end of the game. The Saints' defense being that impressive, in my opinion, was the thing that stands out the most, because it clearly was their biggest weakness early on in the year. And I think that's a pretty telling sign they were able to slow down the Bucs like that.
It's just funny, though, because last year when the Niners played the Saints, which was probably the game of the year.
One of them.
That's
you
true.
got the Seattle game in there. Both Seattle games, I guess.
Oh, man, yeah. Both those games are crazy. But even the first game was a Week 10 that all the receivers were dropping the passes, but yet they were still in the game.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
And all of our injuries as well. We didn't have Kittle that game. But I remember that we were just super down at injuries. I think Seattle was as well, but I don't think it was as dramatic as the Niners injuries were. But yeah, it was definitely a close game.
But the thing is, Niners did not record a single sack last year against the Saints, and Bosa was on the field.
Oh, really?
And with this game coming up, I don't expect any sacks at all, and I expect our defense to do pretty well for the first half, but they're going to get tired really quickly because I'm going to expect a lot of 3-and-outs this game.
Yeah, especially with Nick Mullins playing or CJ Beathard, just depending on how the game goes.
Yeah, so the tough thing too is New Orleans is number 1 in the league in third down conversions too. They're at 51.4%, and they actually were 9 of 14 against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has a good defense. They were 9 of 14 against them, and it's going to be difficult for the 49ers to be able to, get that pressure they got last time, because they obviously weren't healthy. If I recall correctly, Tart was out and Ford was out for that game, or he got hurt early on in the game, if I recall correctly. But they were still able to get some kind of pressure. The 49ers defense is somewhere near the middle of the pack. I believe they are top 15. They're allowing teams to convert at a rate of 40.7%. So, it's kind of cliche, but third down is going to be very important. Their ability to kind of keep the Saints from gaining, small chunk plays, 2-3 yards on first and second down is going to be huge. Because, funny enough, the only quarterback who throws shorter on average than 49ers quarterbacks is Drew Brees. So if they get him in third and long situations, they might have a chance. But I'm not feeling too optimistic about it. I think they're going to get picked apart, to be honest.
Well, considering the past 2 weeks, they've already been picked apart anyways.
Yeah, unless Shanahan can scheme something just almost every down. I mean, I'm looking too forward to this game.
The play calling against the Seahawks 2 weeks ago was very, how do you put it, off. Because he tried to do a lot of trick plays that Seattle is very disciplined against. Like, they play them twice a year. They know Shanahan's going to try to do something up his sleeve. But he did the same plays against Bengals, Jets, I want to say Giants as well. All these little trick plays, but you're playing against a divisional opponent. You can't be doing these kind of plays against them.
Right.
Unless they're on their like toes and stuff, maybe, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, when I saw that first Wildcat play, it was like what, third and
5.
Third and 5, yeah. I mean, and it was like early into the first quarter, or like middle of the first quarter or something like that. And it was just like, well, you're not even like in the red zone or anything. Like, I would understand if it was like, 10, 15 yards from the end zone. But I mean, it didn't make much sense at all just to, have that play call right then and there at that down, especially. Like, maybe if it was like second down, I'd understand, but it didn't make too much sense.
I think honestly, it's very telling that there's some disconnect between what Kyle Shanahan wants to call and what he believes his offense currently can execute, because there's absolutely no reason to not call some sort of, if you're not going to recall a short quick out or a quick slant or something, some sort of quick pass play, because Seattle was bringing pressure. If I recall, they did have about 8 or 9 players in the box that play. I just don't understand what the thinking was, because if you guys recall that first touchdown they scored against the Packers in the championship game, I believe it was 3rd and 9, and they ran the draw play to Mostert because the Packers were selling all out on a blitz, and Kyle, called a great play, which, it's not going to work every single time, but I have to think the odds are so much better than putting hobbled Jimmy Garoppolo out wide and running Wildcat with Jerick McKinnon, who, no offense, Jerick McKinnon has had 2 horrific knee injuries, and the fact he's even playing is a testament to his strength and his, determination, but he's definitely not putting the fear in teams of, keeping on a read option. I think it's very telling about the kind of disconnect there is between play caller and not just quarterback, but offense as a whole.
Well, going back to the Saints game, that was trick play galore. You have Emmanuel Sanders throwing to Mostert. You have Jimmy actually throwing a really deep pass to Emmanuel Sanders. Like, that game was awesome. Like, that was one of Jimmy Garoppolo's best games in his career.
For sure.
But this year, he has regressed. Don't want to be too harsh about the quarterback, but he's not good enough for Shanahan. Shanahan needs somebody to be a dual threat in a system so he would not be limited.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't know if Jimmy, ever since the first ankle injury, I think that's just kind of where it's been going downhill. I don't know if it's just because he's not comfortable, stepping back and putting it all into a throw, or but just ever since the ankle injury, he's just not been playing the same at all. So I don't know if he's just not comfortable back there anymore, or what. But it kind of is disheartening in a way, just to see, that he took us all the way to the Super Bowl, and then the very next year, he's putting up, 100-yard games now. Or not even 100-yard games, I guess.
Well, the thing is that Shanahan is using Debo and Ayuk as gadget players, pretty much.
Yeah.
For jet sweeps, in around, stuff like that. They are much better than that. I want to see them go down the field.
Mm.
Well, we saw against the Patriots. Ayuk went down the field. He can catch with not contested, but deep balls. If the ball is accurate, at least.
And Kinlaw especially. I feel like Kinlaw, he's developing pretty nicely, especially as a rookie. I don't think he has any sacks yet this year, but I know that he has stuffed a lot of runs up the middle. It's just kind of been sort of like behind the scenes sort of plays that he's been making. It's just not the like standout Nick Bosa sort of rookie of the year that we've seen in the previous year.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know if you guys want to get into Kinlaw now, but I do have some numbers I wanted to talk about with Kinlaw. He is very good if you're ranking him, amongst rookies. Currently, among rookie interior defensive linemen, he's second in total pass rush snaps. He's second in pressures. He's second in QB hurries. He's second in QB hits. He unfortunately hasn't recorded a sack yet, so that's kind of what stands out. But his run defense grade is good. It's 10th out of the 25 interior defensive line rookies this year. His tackles is third among rookie interior defensive linemen. So if you're comparing him against the crop of players that just came out, it's really not as concerning. I think the issue that people have is that he's been compared to DeForest Buckner, who was an All-Pro and was just one of the best. Honestly, I can't really think of a better interior defensive lineman other than Aaron Donald at this juncture. And I think that kind of created an unfair set of expectations for Kinlaw, because the general consensus of him coming out was that he was just a massive human being. I believe he was at the combine, he was 6'5", like 330, 335, something like that. So he had a good 35 pounds on Buckner, and it's clear just how big the guy is. But the issue with Kinlaw was that he got away in college. If you watch a lot of his tape at South Carolina, he was just bullying opposing offensive linemen and just knocking them over with his brute strength. And unfortunately, at the NFL level, the guys on the other side of the ball are just as strong as you, so you kind of have to work on some sort of technique. You have to be better with your hands at the line of scrimmage. And it's early. He's only played in, he's barely played a half a season so far, and he has plenty of room to grow. And I think the concerning thing clearly is that the fact that there aren't any sacks, because I can cite his pressure numbers. He has 12 pressures on the year, which isn't great. It's not fantastic, but it's only worse, it's only worse than one other rookie defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman, sorry. And I think ultimately he needs some time to kind of grow, because he's getting the pressure. There's plenty of plays on tape where he's just burst off the line and he's beat his man, or he's just bull rushed and overpowered. But I think he needs to refine his technique, because unfortunately, no matter how many pressures you get, if you're not finishing them, it doesn't really amount to much. But I think with him, my whole point is that it's just something to kind of have some patience with, and hopefully the return of Nick Bosa, if he gets a proper recovery from his ACL and it's not an extended timeline, and maybe D Ford or another edge comes back, having those guys on the outside will only help Kinlaw on the inside. But it's promising is my point, basically. I don't know how you guys feel, but I definitely think that there's a lot of positives that are kind of being ignored because he has 0 sacks.
Right. Yeah, whenever I'm just sitting there just casually watching the games, I always see, Kinlaw always gets up right up the middle, and then he just doesn't finish. And I mean, they always just avoid him or like outmaneuver him, or they just, it's just like you said, it's kind of a timely thing. I think he just needs to work on the technique of just finishing the job and getting to the quarterback. But yeah, I'm not afraid of him being like a bust or anything. Obviously, it's too early and everything to even say that he is a bust or anything. But yeah, he is a massive being. So
yeah, I agree with Bosa. When Bosa comes back, it's going to be a big difference, because he won't be as double teamed as much either. And the thing is, I know he's been banging down passes, and I know one of them got picked off. I think Warner picked it off.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was Aziz. I can't remember though. I'll try to look real quick.
I can't remember who it was against, but that would actually kind of reminds me of Chris Jones, what he did to us in the Super Bowl.
Yes, and he actually is tied for
Chris
fourth.
Jones is big, massive being too, and that's what the Niners were trying to get at. And obviously Buckner's a big dude too, but again, you have to look at the money, financial issues. In my opinion, I still wish they kept Buckner over Armstead, but that's just me.
So Buckner has really been performing on the Colts, because I think they got a safety even a couple weeks back, and it was just because Buckner just destroyed the middle and just got right up to the QB. I'm not sure entirely what his stats are this season offhand, but I know that he's been talked about a lot on the Colts.
He has 2.5 sacks with the Colts right now. He has 4 tackles. He has 13 QB hits. That's like one less than last year already.
And he is 7th in pass rush grade for what?
I mean, I'm sure he's getting a lot of pressures, but it doesn't say. I'm looking at a Pro Football Reference because they usually have good stats on there.
He has 25.
But it doesn't say
25 pressures
currently.
currently.
Well, because pressures and sacks are different. I think pressures are more should be more accounted for than sacks. Because if you get pressure, you can actually rattle the quarterback more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, sacks are a very good stat column, but pressures actually help change the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think pressure should be more noticed on players, just because they can't be game changing. I mean, if you get pressure just right up in the QB's face, and I mean he can just lob the ball up and then. Yeah, I totally agree. I kind of wanted to get into the future projections of the team and just like how the season is as a whole now, just because injuries have been insane. We are we have the most cap on the IR right now, which is at 80 million. And the next closest is the Broncos at 51 million. So at this point in the season, I've seen a lot of mock drafts put us at pick 15, but I've looked at a couple drafts recently, and they have us picking. All of them have pretty much said that we're picking a corner, and then one said that we have an offensive line pick. So I was just seeing if you guys kind of agree with that, or if you guys do think that we should move up and grab a QB, because I know it's kind of been the talk on Twitter recently.
I say move up and grab Zach. I'm on the Zach Wilson hype train.
What would you be willing to give up for a move up? Because it'll probably be a player and a pick, I'd imagine, our first round pick.
Honestly, it depends on who we're going to trade up with.
Right.
It's definitely a first rounder. We're going to trade, I say, one of our fifth rounders we just got for Quan, and maybe a fourth.
Oh, so you just want to stick with picks for the trade?
It depends, because I would like to get rid of. I think D Fort's gone. I think
Right. Yeah.
Tart. I think Tart is gone. I think Sherman might be gone this year. After this year, I just don't. Brandon Richford might be gone too. I don't know about that one. I don't know his numbers for sure. I just don't see him lasting too much longer because he's hurt every year.
Yeah.
I can see them trading Jimmy. I honestly can.
Ooh, draft day trade with Jimmy Garoppolo.
I definitely can see that. Like first Jimmy and a fifth, and maybe something else, a future pick too. I mean, it's a lot of capital, but I still think it should be worth it. Like, look at the Chiefs and Texans. They were playoff teams, and they still traded up for the quarterback.
So would you rather draft a QB than trade for one?
Yes.
Like Darnold or Watson. Those are just like the two that are on the top of my mind right now. I know Darnold has been kind of the talk on Twitter as well.
Well, Washington, he just signed an extension this year. So
yeah, they won't move him.
I mean, it's a new coach, and I mean, maybe try to turn things around or rebuild something. But
I think Watson stays. I don't think he goes anywhere. I've been saying that Eric Bieniemy should be the head coach of Houston.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
If not, I can see if it happens, I can see Jim Harbaugh going to Houston and inheriting Watson, because Watson could remind him of Kaepernick. I have heard of people trying to get, like, hey, we should trade for Stafford. I was like, no, I don't.
I'm on board.
We
with
should.
that,
I don't think we should trade for a quarterback. I think we should trade up for a rookie quarterback. Take the rookie contract. Everything be cheaper. I think Kyle would.
To what he wants him to be.
Exactly. I don't think Sam Darnold's going to be that dual threat. I don't think Stafford's going to be. Stafford might take us to a playoff game, but he won't take us all the way. It's just another.
I disagree, to be honest. I think Stafford would be a very good pickup if they could get him, just because the guy has one of the best arms that's been in the league he got drafted in 2009, the last 10, 11 years. He's been on really bad teams for a long time, and if you watch some of his tape, he's not very mobile, but he can run bootlegs. To me, the biggest concern with him is health, because the big knock now on Jimmy is that he can't stay healthy, and just replacing him with another guy who might not stay healthy isn't very safe, in my opinion. But if we're speaking purely from talent, there are very few quarterbacks in the league that I would say can make throws that Stafford can't, and he makes some throws that I don't think. Maybe Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes are the only other guys I can think of that make some of the throws I've seen this guy make. But the injury is very concerning, and at the same time, the thing that gets me about trading for a veteran is if the veteran is still contributing, why would another team move off of them? Like, quarterbacks are very hard to replace, so why would they be willing to part? You know, it's the same thing. Like, a lot of people have been talking about Matt Ryan coming back. Like, Atlanta doesn't necessarily, like, need to move off of him. You know, like, they could still, they could draft a guy and keep him behind. Like, we all saw Mahomes sit behind Alex Smith for a year. I love Alex Smith. A lot of 49ers fans do. But you can't tell me that Alex Smith is more talented than Patrick Mahomes, but he was able to kind of pass the baton, if you will. And I think that recipe was very good for them. Mahomes has said numerous times how much that helped his growth, and I think that's a lot safer of a thing. And a lot of people will say, well, why don't the 49ers do that with Jimmy? The difference is the Falcons don't have a roster built to win now, and the Falcons don't have an out built into their contract with Matt Ryan. They don't really have a choice, unless they trade him and he restructures. They're kind of stuck with him. So Dee Ford actually has an out on his contract, but because of I don't know if you guys remember the restructure that happened this past offseason, just before the start of the year, to clear some cap space for this year. Before they had an out where they could have just cut him with no guaranteed money, but that restructure actually created some dead cap that would rise if they were to cut him. So it would be $14 million in 2021 rather. It would be 9.5 in 2022, and then it would be 4.7 in 2023. The thing is with Dee Ford is that there's so much dead money over the 3 years following this season. It gets okay. $4 million isn't too bad in 2023, but $14 million in dead cap for a player that's not playing for you is really tough. And again, it's kind of, it's no secret that I think the 49ers should move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. I have no problem with him as a person. I just don't think that he's the man for this offense, and I just don't think that his quarterback play is a good fit. But the thing is with Jimmy is that they have kept that opt-out intact with Jimmy. If they've created a bunch of cap space this year. They went all in this year, and as tough as the year has been with injuries, we as fans kind of have to appreciate that they did, kind of try to push all their chips in and make a run back at a Super Bowl run. But the concerning thing is that they were willing to trade a player of Buckner's caliber. They were willing to risk dead cap with a player like Dee Ford, who they know isn't playing 100% of snaps or anything close to that because of his injury history. And they were willing to trade a player like Quan Alexander, who has not only tremendous value on the field, but is a staple of the locker room, and we all know how much energy he brought. And I think it's very telling that they were willing to make all these personnel moves without doing a simple move of just restructuring Jimmy's contract, because that restructure would void the opt-out that they currently have after this season. So they've really kept Jimmy on like a 1 year to year deal, and as a result have sacrificed some very key pieces. So I think that flexibility to move on from him is very important for the front office.
That's
because
true.
he has a 20. If we trade him before June 1st, Niners save 24 million
Mm-hmm.
in cap space. If they trade him after June 1st, they save 25 million and a half. But their dead cap would be 1.4 mil in 21 and 1.4 mil in 22, or combine them both in before June 1st. So I think he's gone after this season.
And there's no way they can tell him, like, you know, take a pay cut. Somebody else will pay him the money probably if he goes somewhere. Like it's I don't think that he should stay, but I also respect him enough as a professional NFL player, and you know, for the job he's done. They can't just say, hey, take less money to stay here, especially if they do draft somebody or they plan on moving on from him. He deserves a chance to go somewhere else if that's the route they take, in my opinion.
Well, plus he turns 30 next year. He's not getting younger.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys remember the reports that were coming out. It wasn't a Bay Area reporter. I believe it was Tom Curran in Boston. When the Brady rumors were coming up, was that there was some sort of concern that Brady was, that Jimmy was kind of at his ceiling, and that the 49ers as a organization were kind of concerned that he wasn't going to get very much better. And I don't want to speak on a reporter that's not a 49ers beat reporter and something that I don't know about, but the way this season has gone, that rumor starts to get a little bit of credibility, in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it seems like there might have been some validity there.
I think, just the way that Jimmy's season has gone, I think it's just based more off of injuries than anything. Because, we've seen him come back from that sprained ankle, or quote-unquote come back, because, he obviously hasn't been 100% since the first injury. But he's always been just so happy feet-like and has never had his foot set, because as soon as you see his feet set and him just chuck the ball, you know it's going to be a dime of a throw. It's just, I think it's just all mental, and then that ankle sprain obviously too doesn't do anything good. But I think it's just, he's just not comfortable anymore behind the line. So
I wouldn't be either, because the whole line's not that good, especially the interior.
Yeah, because you say so. I totally agree, and I think the issue comes from the fact that the 49ers O-line, if you look at their grades across the board and their pressures allowed and all that stuff, their pass blocking generally isn't very, it's not elite. It's usually in the bottom half of the league, but the run blocking grades across the just across the board are all top 15, top 20, and like McGlinchey's been getting a lot of heat this year for his pass protection. But he's been one of, if not the best run blocker in football. And ultimately, what Kyle wants is a flexible offensive line that can run that zone blocking scheme and run that outside zone. And I think the ability to have a QB who's mobile, who can move with that line on bootlegs and can kind of make up for the fact that while they're very good at run blocking, they might not be elite at pass blocking, is going to go a long way. And unfortunately, Jimmy was semi-mobile before the ACL, but since that ACL injury, he just does not look good moving outside of the pocket. And the O-line definitely has some culpability here. But at a certain point, you kind of have to understand that the quarterback's shortcomings also have a play. It's kind of, they go hand in hand, which is why I'm with Zach. I totally think that they should get a younger mobile guy. I think that would end up doing wonders for the offense as a whole.
Right. You're in a division with Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and then I guess Goff, too, if you want to include him in there. But you just have to keep high of a caliber of players, even if you even want to have a chance. So, I wouldn't be opposed if they go out and get draft a young QB, but it better be just a solid pick, or it's gonna be a little frustrating.
Well, you have to also realize that Wilson had a horrible offensive line for almost all his career.
Still does.
And look at him now, though. Look, he's still performing elite numbers because of how mobile he is and that arm strength, and it's incredible. I don't like the guy, but you have to respect him.
Yeah. I've always respected Russell Wilson and what he can do and what he's always been able to do, I guess, just because of how bad the offensive line has been. But I mean, when you have receivers like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett that just complement each other so well, I mean, it's just hard to, not side with Russell Wilson and just be able to, understand how he can do things outside the pocket and inside the pocket as well.
Like I said before, whenever the Niners actually had a younger, better QB that can actually throw the ball deep, that's when we're going to realize what Deebo Samuel's and Brandon Ayuk's true abilities are.
Right.
I feel like we were wasting them right now as catching players.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say we're wasting them, but I mean, Deebo, I mean, he's more of a shifty, high agility player. Ayuk is just kind of like our go up and get the ball sort of guy. I mean, the dude's arms, his hands, he can scratch his knee just standing up. I mean, he has a wingspan of a freaking giant. But I mean, I think I do agree when you say that we need to get a younger QB that can air it down the field, just because we haven't seen that much of Jimmy. I mean, we've seen to him overthrowing Sanders in the Super Bowl to him barely making the throw to Sanders in that Saints game. Or no, not Saints. Rams game, sorry, of last year. So, I mean, just getting a younger QB that can pretty much do it all or be a dual threat at least would be a nice change for sure.
I think Kittle would appreciate it more too, because Jimmy was trying to kill him twice this year.
Yeah.
By overthrowing him behind a line of scrimmage. That's ridiculous.
And you make a really good point, actually, because I think no matter how internally he feels, Kittle will never, he's such a good teammate, and we all know his love for Jimmy. He will never, say anything negative about him, and I can respect the loyalty there, but it's very telling that, as we've discussed before, we've seen on tape, Ayuk coming out after plays, coming on the sideline, or even in the middle of the field, throwing his hands up, kind of having this body language of like, hey, dude, I'm wide open. What are you doing? Why are you checking down? Why aren't you throwing me the ball? And It's very telling when a rookie is coming in and doing that. And I totally agree. They're kind of wasting the potential of both of these guys. And the counter argument I always hear is that, well, it's West Coast offense. It's just short, quick throws. Like, the Jimmy's good at it. It's what they want to do. There's two other coordinators that are very closely linked to Shanahan that are running almost an identical offense. And that's Matt LaFleur in Green Bay and Sean McVay in LA. And last year, because I'll put aside that this year when Jimmy's healthy, because the numbers they're horrendous this year. But going back to last year when he played a full 16 games and he was healthy, he finished 31st out of 32nd in intended air yards. And then we have to understand when I cite that doesn't mean that just throwing the ball farther means that you're a better quarterback. But when you compare it to Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff running the same offense with the same concepts and the same schemes, Goff was 22nd, Rodgers was 9th. So Aaron Rodgers is running, and I know that Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterback talents of all time, but this logic that Jimmy is just running what the offense, it's not the offense Kyle wants to run. It's Kyle scheming around Jimmy's limitations, and unfortunately what we've seen this year is teams are basically loading up the line of scrimmage. They're daring the 49ers to beat them deep, and it's not happening for whatever reason. And, Mullins and Beathard aren't going to do it either. They don't really have an answer for that. And they made the Seahawks are literally on track right now to outpace the worst passing defense of all time by 1,000 yards. And Jimmy got 84 yards against them in 3 quarters. And it's just, it's very, very concerning when you look at it like that.
Yeah, if you can't be the worst pass defense in the league, there's something wrong.
It's not even just, it's like ever. Like, it's not even, like, they're on, the season's not over yet, but they're on pace to be, like, the worst ever. Like, that to me is just, it's, like, mind-boggling that like, I was really hoping that would be the game he would make people like me look really stupid and prove, start throwing downfield and picking apart his secondary. He looked awful, man. And this was before, I understand he hurt his ankle again. I'm very, very sorry that he's hurt again. But he was completely healthy coming into that game. He was healthy enough not to be listed on the injury report. He was healthy enough not to be listed on the practice reports, and he looked terrible.
I don't think he was ever healthy because you cannot heal your ankle that quickly and all of a sudden get hurt again.
I shouldn't say 100%
just-
healthy. I take that back. I shouldn't say 100% healthy, but he was healthy enough to go to the point where I don't like. Nobody was talking about his ankle when he was jumping around high-fiving his teammates in New England when they boat raced New England. You know what I mean? Like that. It wasn't an issue before then. And I get high ankle sprains; they can flare up here and there. But a lot of the mistakes weren't a physical limitation. It was a mental limitation where he was missing his hot reads and he wasn't picking up defenders when it's. Jimmy's mental limitations to me are as concerning as the physical limitations when you go back and watch tape. And it's easy for me as somebody who's not standing in a pocket with big 300-pound people running full speed at you, you know, trying to tackle you. It's much easier for me to pick apart his decision-making after, but it's very concerning seeing some of these reads that are wide open. And then I think that's where you get people like Brandon Ayuk that are kind of throwing their arms up in the air like, hey, like, what's going on, man? I'm wide open. There's no defenders anywhere near me, you know? So
I remember when week 1 came out, and after the game, everybody blamed Pettis.
yes.
And whenever the all 22 came out, nobody blamed Jimmy really that much.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what are you guys doing? Pettis was open almost all game. He did his job. He could have had like at least 3 touchdowns that game, but Jimmy would not throw it his way, except for that one time. And if honestly, Pettis would have not caught that anyways. Even if he dove for it, people were saying, "Oh, you should have dove for it." If he dove for it, you would have got hurt. There's two guys right on him. Like, what do you want him to do?
Right.
But he made a man fall down 10 yards back, and he could have scored there. He could have scored. There's like nobody around him. I think it's like second quarter, third quarter. And people are blaming Pettis. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to justify Pettis right now. I'm just saying, like, Jimmy's either being petty or he just not very good at seeing the field.
Yeah, when all that film came out, when Pettis was wide open on, I think it was like 4 or 5 plays at least. I didn't know if it was just the lack of confidence or trust in Pettis, because I mean, you know, we all know the history of what Pettis has done for us. So I don't know if it's just the trust that Jimmy has a problem with, or if it's just the confidence in him knowing, like, oh, I can't get that throw in there, or I can't get that throw all the way down the field, or, you know, I'm just not confident in myself. So that's why we see check down after check down after check down, and then that's why teams, you know, perform so well against our offense, just because they know we're either going to, one, run it or throw it 2 yards down the field. So if we do draft a QB, I think I'd be fine with it. But, I mean, it's going to be a while until we win another Super Bowl, I'd say. So with that being said, do you guys think that the Super Bowl window is closed for us since all these injuries for one and just kind of how the team has been going, at least?
It depends on how healthy we are.
Right.
I think that's what it comes down to. Like, health has been the worst part, has been the biggest impact of our season. It's been a big impact over the past couple of seasons, actually. I think that if the Niners can actually be healthy, like some other teams, I think they still have a chance. I don't know if it's actually a Super Bowl window, but they still are a playoff team. Like, if you notice how good these depth players are, just imagine if the stars come back and they're ready to go. They're definitely a Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
It's just we need a new quarterback. We need to upgrade the interior of the offensive line, and I think Spoon might be gone too. So I'm hoping we draft a corner. So Asante Samuel Jr. I'm pounding the table for him. He's been my guy so far. I want him, Zach Wilson, and I wouldn't even mind if they got Troy Warner too. Like, just give me that double package. I don't care.
Yeah, that'd be insane if we had both the Warner brothers on there. That'd be pretty cool to see.
I think the window's closed personally, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
This is my reasoning behind that. Before anybody gets super upset about it, is the way I define a Super Bowl window is a 2 to 3. Generally in the NFL, it's a 2 to 3, more times closer to 2 stretch where you have a good to elite quarterback, but a cheap quarterback that's not, taking up a huge portion of the cap space, which the 49ers had. Jimmy only took up 9% of the cap last year. I believe the number was closer to somewhere between 10 and 15 this year. I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head. And you have the pieces around. You have good depth. You have, a strong enough defense. You have a complementary offense. The problem that I have is, obviously, it seems we agree on the quarterback play, which is a huge issue, but they have 29 unrestricted free agents coming up this offseason. That's more than half the 53-man roster. And
right.
It's very concerning because the salary cap will also be going down. Some are projecting it at about $175 million, which would be about a 13% decrease from, I believe it's at $202 million this year. So it's going to be harder to retain guys because the odds are, at the lower, market deals will probably have some wiggle room to get guys to take a little bit of a pay cut. But you're not going to be re-signing, guy like Richard Sherman is up for his last big contract. He's 32 now, 31 to 32. It's his last chance to make big money. I don't see Sherman coming back. Tart has been very good. I think that he's kind of priced himself out of the 49ers plans personally. I think he's very good at what he does, and he deserves to get a bit of a pay bump. And I think he'll be gone. Trent Williams has to be re-signed. Trent Williams is one of the best left tackles in football still, and he's making that very clear this year. He could command upwards of $20 million next year. And I think that's very concerning. And when you couple the uncertainty with the unrestricted free agents, also with, what really got the 49ers to the Super Bowl last year, it was a great team effort, but it was that defensive line. That defensive line was one of the best. I don't know about you guys, that's the best defensive line I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Game-changing.
It was incredible. And if we look at it now, Eric Armstead is the only intact piece left from that line because Buckner's gone, obviously. Thomas is hurt as a depth piece. Ford is, no one knows what's going on with D Ford. And then with Bosa, the concerning thing, it'll be something for us to monitor going forward, was he didn't only just have the ACL tear, he had cartilage damage at the same time, which can complicate a recovery. And I think maybe it's just a very conservative take, but I just don't I can't count on them re-signing the majority of those 29 players and keeping the same roster intact while also getting back a healthy Ford and a healthy Bosa. So my whole take is that I think the window from that 2019 team, that the legendary team that we all grew to love, that window is closed, unfortunately. And I hate to put it that way. I think that it was a great time for all of us watching it, but their best bet is to regroup in 2021. Which is why I have no problem drafting a rookie, because if you look at it, while they may be losing a lot of expensive veterans, they still have Fred Warner, who I believe is 23. Bosa's still under 25. They still have Debo and Ayuk, who've been fantastic. They still have Kittle, who's still, I believe he's 27 this year. And the point, there's core players that they can build around that still have a 5 to 10 year window in the NFL where they're going to be contributing players and playing at a high level. So I don't have an issue with them regrouping for a year and kind of planning for having a 5 to 6 year window where they have a chance to win one rather than just going all in like they did this past year. Because I think we saw the risks of what happens when you go all in and things out of your control, injuries, COVID, all these other things can derail your plans no matter how you have it mapped out. It's so dangerous to go all in the way they did this year. And while you commend the effort, it's something where I'd hope you kind of learn from your mistakes if you are the 49er front office.
Right. Yeah, to kind of go along with that, David Lombardi, he's kind of just like a reporter for the 49ers. He tweeted earlier today saying that the 2020 salary cap for the 49ers is about $1.8 million. And it's a little less than that, I believe, now because we just elevated two players. Was it Craycraft and Cyprian, I believe? So it's going to be a little less than $1.8 million. So, yeah, the 49ers are definitely in a tough spot for the next offseason for sure. So The next coming games, we have the Saints next, obviously, and then we have the Rams, Bills, Washington, Cowboys, Cardinals, and then the Seahawks to end the season. And overall, I can see us winning maybe about 2 or 3 of them, which would probably put us at like a 6-10 record. And then again, that could probably put us at like a 15-16 sort of draft pick. But then again, anything could happen on any given Sunday. So, I mean, injuries happen every week. So, do you guys agree with that 6-10 record, or do you guys think we could pull out a win any?
That's where I'm at right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think they beat Washington and Dallas, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the teams I have us beating.
I'd be happy to be wrong. That I would love if they won every single game from here on out, but it's just.
But then again, if we do pull out, more than 2 or 3 wins out of this stretch, I mean, I feel like we should start pushing more towards a playoff run than anything. And I wrote down here in my notes that Jimmy has, they said 4 to 6 weeks for his injury, for his ankle, and I really think he won't. I hate to say that. I don't think he will come back until maybe this Cardinals game, but maybe the Seahawks game is where I'd be comfortable with him playing, just because we do need that 100% healthy, fully healthy Jimmy Garoppolo. We can't have this lingering ankle issue, sort of 50%, 80% healthy Jimmy. We just need that 100% ready to go sort of Jimmy.
That's actually kind of interesting thing. I just now noticed. Most of the teams are actually doing better away than at home, except for Cowboys, Washington, Jets, obviously. But it's in the Bengals and Jaguars. But I feel like the fans not being there, it makes a huge impact now. Like I'm just now noticing this. Like, if the Niners have fans, I feel like they could have won a couple more games. To be honest, I know it sounds kind of biased and stuff, but I feel like they actually could have had a chance. Like, I feel like the crowd could have made a bigger impact on some of these games, but it's just crazy though, because Niners are only 2.5, 3 games behind from the division.
I think it's 1.5, or with a loss now. I'm not entirely sure.
But Seattle lost.
They're 2.5, yeah.
Cardinals lost. Yeah, 2.5. It's crazy because they are still in it. I don't see them going anywhere, but it's just crazy how they are still in it. Like, if the Niners actually were healthy this year, they would be smacking these teams. Like, if the Niners had the roster from last year, they'd be smacking these teams easily. Because how inconsistent most of these teams are right now.
Yeah, that's why I'm at the point where I'm trying to just focus kind of on, some positive things. I really do think that, we talked about Kinlaw earlier. I think that they really hit on Ayuk, and it's early. There's some numbers real quick I wanted to share with you guys that I think really stand out. His receiving grade, and like I said, these are PFF grades. A lot of people don't like PFF grades. I get it. I'm just citing them because they do generally correlate with players who are performing well. Currently, his PFF grade is 27th out of 201 wide receivers, which, it's not eye-popping. Like, Justin Jefferson is top 5, I believe. He's clearly been the best rookie wide receiver in my opinion. But Ayuk is 10th in the league in drop grades, meaning that he's had sure hands, and when the ball is thrown his way, he's not dropping them, which, as we know, is a major concern for a lot of rookies coming out. And his run blocking grade is actually near the top as well. So it shows he has a willingness to run block, and he's doing it effectively. And he's graded 3rd amongst all rookies in receiving grade currently. So out of this class that had Jerry Jeudy and Ruggs and Lamb and Jefferson and Rigor and all these guys that went ahead of him, he's actually pacing the majority of them, which is a very encouraging sign in my opinion.
I was on the CeeDee Lamb and Jeudy train for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I was very upset when the Niners did not draft a receiver in the first round. They got Kinlaw. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then Ayuk got drafted. I was like, "Okay, I'm fine now," because that's all I really wanted was another receiver, an elite receiver that actually could complement Debo. Because I know Debo cannot do it by himself.
Yeah, when I was sitting with my dad on draft night, and when we took Kinlaw, I was like, all right. I mean, I understand the pick, but God, come on. I mean, you got receivers up there still. Like, we need those for like more than anything right now. We have the depth at D line. Like, we're fine. This is way before injuries. Obviously, this is draft night, and so I just kind of like walked away. Didn't pay attention much to the draft after that. And then my dad just like yells from the living room. He's like, "Hey, we traded up." I'm like, "Oh, what?" So I like run back in and we drafted Ayuk. So I was like, "All right, well, I'll take it."
I'm a big fan of that pick. Too. I was a big fan when they made it. To be honest, I know you guys are out in the Midwest, but I'm here in the Bay Area. I'm a Cal fan, so I watch a lot of Pac-12 football. And Ayuk had a couple games that really stood out, but there was a big one against Oregon when Oregon was still in the playoff picture late in the season last year. And Ayuk just absolutely destroyed an Oregon secondary that was far and away the best one in the Pac-12 in my opinion. And it really stood out to me. And I was completely with you, Zach. I wanted CD, number one. I wanted Ruggs. They were kind of 1A and 1B for me. I really wasn't sold on Judy, to be honest, but I had a buddy of mine who's actually a Steelers fan who was, he called the Kinlaw pick, and he kept pushing Ayuk and telling me, hey, Ayuk's special. He's the kind of guy Shanahan would want. Like, I'm telling you, Ayuk's probably going to be the guy, so I warmed up to it. I didn't think he would be this good this fast, though, to be honest, and I think that it's very hard to hit on receivers early, but they clearly saw something that they liked in him, and I believe he's only listed at 6 foot. 6 foot. He might even be listed at 5'11", but his wingspan is enormous. He has a wingspan of I have to double check. I believe it's 80 inches, if I'm not mistaken. His wingspan is 82. Yeah, 82. It's insane. So my hope is that I don't want to keep bringing up the quarterback thing, but I hope whoever the quarterback is, whatever they decide to do, they get a quarterback that's willing to start throwing some 50-50 balls his way, because I think with his speed and his ability to come back on the ball with that wingspan, he could easily be winning these 50-50 balls if they decide to start throwing downfield to him.
Right, yeah, I totally agree. I did not expect him, like you said, to be good this quick. I thought they were just going to slowly work him in, and he'll just, kind of build up like they did with Debo at the start of last season. But yeah, Ayuk, he's been great for us so far. And compared to, like, I think Judy, I haven't watched much of Judy lately, but he was definitely my number one and going into the draft last year. But I don't think I've seen too many big things with Judy, but yeah, Ayuk is definitely a monster this year for sure.
And that's a positive, because we know outside of, Bosa was kind of, teams mess up top 5 picks all the time, but that seemed like a pretty sure pick. And McGlinchey's been good, but he hasn't been, I don't think he justified his draft position personally. I think he's a fantastic run blocker, but if you're going that high, I think you need to be better in pass protection, and I'm more than willing to accept that he has every opportunity to get better. And then we obviously remember 2017 when they picked Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster, which, it is what it is. It happened. It's over. But they needed to hit in the first round. And my philosophy is always, if you hit on 50% of your picks in the first 3 rounds, you're generally doing pretty good. So if Kinlaw can start finishing some of those pressures that he's getting and recording sacks and refine, which I truly believe he will, I'm a big believer in him. The 49ers have the potential to hit on 2. And that, going forward for the next few years, will set them up tremendously, because they'll have 2 impact guys on those rookie wage pay scales, especially as the salary cap begins to drop and there's, a little bit more difficulty navigating the water. But I think that they've done a tremendous job the past couple years kind of making up for maybe some early blunders with drafting. I know there's the late round guys, Warner was a 3rd round pick, Kittle was a 5th round pick, Greenlaw was a 5th round pick, but it's, as we've seen with one of the biggest rivals with Seattle's missed on so many first-round picks, and that's probably the only reason they haven't been winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl the past few years, is because they've missed so many early-round picks, even while having a Hall of Fame-level talent at quarterback. So I do want to give John Lynch and the scouting staff and the people putting the effort into those picks credit, because they have done a very good job the last couple of years.
Right, totally agree.
I actually consider Reuben Foster a hit. It's just that the things that happened to him was Um, I don't know. I guess I don't know what the right word to say is. It's like discomforting, I guess. Or, I mean, his girlfriend and everything kind of set him up to fail. So he should have left her. The moment. I'm sorry, I'm just saying this. He should have left her. It's not Solomon Thomas' fault that he got drafted third overall. You kind of can't blame Lynch for that one because they were so buddy in class. But I think Thomas was surprised himself that he joined third overall before Mahomes and Watson, because Niners needed a quarterback, and they left with Hoyer and CJ.
It's not a bad deal.
18. I'm still not so. McGlinchey was fine his first 2 years. This year, I have been very pessimistic about him because he's always on his back in almost every single game. He got flattened out by DJ Reed. The dude's only 190 pounds.
Yeah, that's not
Like,
that's not good.
that's like, how's that even possible? That's not ideal at all. So, McGlinchey is definitely, in my opinion, I think he's regressed a lot this year than last year. He's just not getting better at all in the pass game. He reminds me of the opposite of Trent Brown. Trent Brown was terrific in the passing game, but when it comes to running game, he was slow because he's too big.
Totally agree.
I don't want to sound like too optimistic, but I feel like the reason, in a way, that McGlinchey has been kind of on a down low this season might be because of Staley. I mean, everyone knows how Staley was with the line, especially. I mean, he was super energized, always pumped up. You know, I mean, like the guy just seemed like he was doped up on something like every game, just because of how high he was, just like how high his energy was each and every game. But I mean, when you lose someone like Staley, I mean, it's just, I mean, it takes a hit on the line, especially even if we do get someone like Trent Williams. I mean, the line isn't going to be the same without Staley, so.
No, but again, you got to move on. I mean, it's a business. I mean, I'm sure Staley did help McGlinchey out during the offseason. I'm sure of it because they were best friends past couple of years. But again, he did not improve in the pass game at all. It's just horrible to watch. He's always on his back every single game, and I think that's why. Again, I'm trying to justify Jimmy's performance either this year, but I would be scared if McGlinchey was on my line too, because he's always on his back and the defender's right there within less than 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think a big thing too is I don't know the exact weight change he had, but I know he lost a considerable amount of weight too coming in. And I think maybe that's made him more nimble while he's getting out in the open field. Especially, you know, they ran so many of those misdirections and sweeps and reverses and stuff where he was out as one of the lead blockers. But I think that it's very concerning that he is ending up, like you're saying, on his back a lot. And he's ending up getting just beat by, not technique, but just by pure strength from the opposing defensive lineman. There's a lot of plays where he's just getting bull rushed. And, you know, getting beat by technique happens. These guys are the best at what they do in the world. They're going to trade, you know, going back and forth, beating one another when it comes to the technique. But when you're just getting overpowered physically like that, it's very concerning because Mike McGlinchey is a big guy. He's, if I'm not mistaken, he's 6'8", 6'9", something. Like, he's a big guy. Like, he's not a small, you know, stout guy. So when the other guys are getting low, you know, the low man always wins is the saying in football. So when you're already a little bit predisposed due to the weight loss, and you're that big, and these guys are beating you low and overpowering you, like, that's where you get a guy like DJ Reed comes in and knocks him off balance, even though he has 100 pounds on DJ Reed, you know? So I'm with Tommy. I'm holding out hope that maybe he can kind of, you know, seek some guidance and, you know, I don't want to say get over, because it's hard to get over. Like, Joe Staley's an incredible human being. We all know how much he meant to the team. But maybe with another off season, another year of growth, and hopefully he puts on a little bit more weight. Like maybe have a couple extra plates at Thanksgiving this year, Mike. Maybe get a little bit of those pounds back. I think he still has the potential, and like I said, he's very good at run blocking. And ultimately, like you said, Zach, that's what was an issue with Trent Brown. Trent Brown's a fantastic pass blocker. That's why he got paid the lucrative contract he was given. But Shanahan wants to run the ball outside, and he can figure out the stuff with the pass game. But ultimately, the run blocking is very important, which is why Trent Williams isn't the best pass protecting left tackle. But when he gets out in space, the guy's a freak athlete for someone as big as he is. So it's very clear the mold that Shanahan wants from his guys that are on the outside of the offensive line on both sides. So I'm not really ready. I know McGlinchey's been getting a lot of heat this year. I'm not ready to, completely say that I'm done with him. I just think that this offseason, like I said, it would do him some good to probably put back on a few of those pounds. But again, he knows his body better than anybody, so I could be totally off base with that. That's just my outside observation into the situation.
And just a little side note, he's 6'8", 290.
Okay.
By the way.
Do you have a weight from last year by any chance?
He was 315.
315, yeah. So 25 pounds that's a pretty good amount of weight.
I mean, it also helps to have really fast running backs behind you too.
Gotta get up to their speed somehow.
And that's another thing. I firmly believe, guys. I don't know about you, and I mean no disrespect. Jeff Wilson's one of my favorite players ever. Actually had the pleasure of meeting him last year near Santa Clara, just out and about one day. He's a super nice guy. But running backs truly do not matter, in my opinion, because they're so replaceable. They have such a short shelf life. And I know not a lot of people agree with this, but I truly believe that they are replaceable. But in Shanahan's offense, it's a little different because Mostert clearly proved how good his value was. Coleman, they all do different things very well. So it's different. Like, if you just have, a bell cow back that you only have one running back, I don't think they're worth those lucrative contracts that McCaffrey and Kamara and Zeke and all these guys are getting just because of how pass-happy the league's going. Yeah, exactly. If you have just one guy that's doing that, it's different. But, Mostert had better speed to the outside than anybody else on the team, in my opinion. McKinnon's better at running routes and kind of working in the pass game. Wilson's better at, for whatever reason, the guy just gets in the end zone. The guy there's a magnet in the football when he has it. Yeah, to the he just scores. And I think Coleman protected the ball better and hits the hole with a little bit more, oomph than the other guys. He hits it with a little bit more authority. So in the 49ers case, while I truly believe that running backs aren't very valuable given their short shelf life in terms of a monetary thing, from a season-to-season standpoint, it really hurts the 49ers at how many injuries they've had at the running back position. And, Hasty's shown a lot of, positive signs. He looks like he's another great find by the front office. But it's really unfair to expect an undrafted rookie to just carry the ball 85-90% of the time because everybody else is hurt. And I think that's limited the offense so much. So basically what I'm saying is that I don't think running backs in the grand scheme of things are the position as a whole is very valuable, but to the 49ers themselves, the running back position is so important because they did such a good job of identifying a committee of 3 to 4 guys that aren't going to break the bank, but all do different things very well.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I feel like
if Matt Barr ever listens to this, he's going to let this comment.
I feel like, just kind of building off of what you said, Jordan, I feel like that's kind of why they've kept McKinnon around for so long. I mean, the dude's been injured for 2 or 3 years now, and he's just now playing off of that humongous contract that we gave him. I mean, it's kind of crazy to just keep, that sort of load on for so long just for an injured player. But, I mean, he's our number one right now, so you just got to do what you got to do, I guess.
And he did score 5 straight games in a row.
Yeah, you can see the talent that was there for sure. And like Tommy was saying, he was hurt for 2 years and he had severe knee injuries. And it's different maybe if you're a pocket quarterback and you have that happen, or a position where you're not really, you're more stationary. But cutting in and out, Because I was very excited when they got him from Minnesota. I don't know about you guys. Like he
yeah,
clearly
for
had.
sure.
I was.
Yeah, he clearly had the talent, and it's very evident that those injuries robbed him of the potential that he had in this offense. It doesn't mean I don't think he can contribute. It doesn't mean that I don't think he should be on the team. It means that I don't think that he'll ever get to that level that they had in mind when they gave him, I think it was 3 years, $28 million, when they signed him to the offseason of 2018. But I feel for the guy because it's got to be really tough to, like same thing with Jalen Hurd, who's kind of, been forgotten this year. They had grand plans for Jalen Hurd and they've kind of had to scrap it because he's had a couple injuries that weren't really, they were just freak accidents, So it's impressive that they were able to keep a role for McKinnon on the team where they, he's able to contribute in the pass game and pass pro, and actually has been, semi-effective, but he's just not. It's unfair to expect that he would ever live up to that deal given the injuries that occurred to him.
McKinnon signed a 4-year deal of $30 million.
Okay, 430. Okay.
Yeah.
And they restructured it, last year?
Yeah, I believe so. I remember something about that.
So I know he took a major pay cut.
Mm-hmm.
Paying like $2 million a year or something like that now.
Yeah, which, I never like the players taking less money given that they're the ones out there taking the risk and throwing,
Right.
themselves on the line, but I think it's one of those deals where it worked out for both sides because McKinnon's not he's a smart guy. He understands the situation, and I think it speaks volumes to the culture that Kyle's created, that guys like him want to stick around and are willing to take less money to come and stay. And I think it'll be very interesting coming up this off season if they're able to retain a guy like Kerry Hyder maybe, who could probably go somewhere and get a spot. Probably starting, but if everybody's healthy for the Niners next year, he's more of a rotational piece. So it'll be interesting to see how they're able to maneuver that, balancing of not overspending for players because they're not going to have the wiggle room to, but while still being able to sell on the culture of the team as a whole, which I think is one of their best assets right now. I think a lot of the players really do like Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that everyone has enjoyed the locker room. I mean, we've seen players like Beretta post almost, every other Sunday or whatever. Whenever a running back goes off or a player goes off on our team, he's just always like, oh, yeah, go get him. I mean, like, you deserve that. Like, And then Quan, for instance, Quan and Sanders, actually, they've been posting just praising, like, not Wilson, Richie James, when he had his big day the other day. So I mean, it's kind of cool to see, players that we've traded for a couple picks or just to make cap room more available to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's no loss of respect or anything. It's always just carried over to wherever they've gone.
Except for Marquise Goodwin, apparently.
Yeah,
he's not.
Yeah,
he's
we
not
don't talk about him. All right, so to wrap it all up, what do you guys think we should start doing for the rest of the season? Just kind of like looking forward to the draft or to the off season, or just hoping that we can make something out of this season.
We'll see how the season plays out.
Oh yeah.
That's my answer.
I would take it 1 week at a time and have the ultimate goal every week to be to go in and beat the person you're playing, because ultimately that's why you play the sport. As fans,
Right.
we want to see the team win. Those guys aren't going out there and putting their their bodies and their well-being on the line. Just to, we'll go out there and whatever happens. I think that they aren't naive. They understand that it's getting harder and harder to envision a path to the playoffs, and people keep getting hurt, and they're coming up against a fairly tough schedule going forward as well. But I think the ultimate goal just should be to take it 1 week at a time and start to kind of have mini goals built within, where like last week, they got boat raced by the Packers, but Richie James was showing, hey, maybe I'm a guy going forward that deserves to get a little bit more of the snap shares, like maybe I'm carving out a role. So if they can find some minor victories while losing at the same time, I think that's very important. But ultimately, I think the goal should still be, to win games. I don't think that this team will tank. I don't think it's in their DNA. I don't think it's in Kyle Shanahan's DNA. But I do think that there should be some sort of, goals moving forward where they can kind of assess where they are as a team going forward, kind of just like I said, just sort of little goals built in week to week, where, hey, maybe they get beat by 2-3 touchdowns when they go play New Orleans next week, but Kinlaw gets breezed for a couple sacks. Like, that can be something that they can build on going forward that they'll feel better about.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, the minor victories, I don't see too much of coming out of the season just because of all the injuries. But, yeah, the minor victories are definitely a good suggestion.
There's a tweet out there right now. It says the 49ers playoff odds are down to 9.9%. They dropped 11% with their loss to the Packers on Thursday. They also have a 2.8% chance of landing a top 5 pick. So there's a chance for everything.
They're in the middle, and that's where you don't want to be. I hate to say, you either want to be really good or you want to be really... You don't want to be... I don't want to say you want to be really bad, but I think it's better to be bad and get draft cap, as we saw in 2018 going into 2019 when Jimmy got hurt and they had the down year. They got Nick Bosa out of it, who's a franchise staple moving forward. So I definitely think that it's better to, if they're not going to make the playoffs, ultimately, I want them to try to win every single game they're in. I'm not advocating for them to tank. I'm not saying they should lose games. But realistically, it would be better to finish 5-11 than it would be 6-10 or 7-9 if you're not going to make the playoffs at all. I don't think that there is, I don't think players are going to sit there and go through an entire offseason and go into a whole new year next year and be like, hey, we were decimated, but we squeaked out 1 or 2 games. Like I don't think that carries the same value that landing a blue chip talent in the top 10 would bring. I think it's a much more tangible asset. But I hope that they don't, I hope they win every game they play. I'm just speaking from a purely objective standpoint.
Right.
The better draft position is a much better, and even if they don't like that, they're not sold on a prospect, they have the ability to pivot and trade back with somebody. We were talking about trading up. The better draft pick they get, they might be able to trade back and accumulate more picks, because as we know, they don't have the third from, they traded the third for Trent Williams this past offseason, so they don't have a third. And this past year, they didn't pick in the second, third, or fourth rounds. So maybe they could start to recoup some of that capital that they've been giving up over the last couple of years just by having a little bit better of a pick.
Right. Yeah, totally agree.
All right, guys. I think that's a wrap for this episode. I'm Zach, and you can catch me at ZeekBear24 on Twitter. Jordan, Tommy, you guys have anything to promote?
You can go ahead and catch me on Twitter at TG_49ers. It's just kind of where I post all my 49er and NFL takes.
And you can follow me at _cousin. I do write for 49ers WebZone, and I just recently have been contributing for 49ers Noir, so you might see some of my stuff on there if you follow either of those pages. But I'm very excited about this. I really think we got something good going here, guys. This is good.
It's good to sit down and talk.
Well, that's a wrap for episode 1.
See ya.